Hello and welcome to another episode of Anna's Gets Be Cooking with a new recipe from the Gilmore Girls official cookbook. Let's see what's on today's menu.
I gotta make strawberry shortcake for 200 people, so I think I'm gonna need strawberries.
Use the blueberries.
To make what?
A blueberry shortcake.
There's no such thing.
Hey,
Let's make Jackson's Blueberry Shortcake. It's time to gather all your ingredients and let's get baking. As you can see, this recipe calls for a lot of butter. 2 sticks of butter at room temperature to be exact. I use the butter wrappers to grease the bottom of the pan. Then I used my stand mixer to cream the butter until it was light and fluffy. Once the butter was nice and fluffy, I added 2 cups of sugar to the stand mixer and mixed that very well. The next steps I did a little bit out of order, but hey, it all turned out okay at the end. You'll see in a bowl I mixed half a cup of milk, whole milk, 2 teaspoons of vanilla bean paste, and 1 cup of sour cream until it was pretty well mixed. It didn't have to be smooth. In another bowl, I mixed together the dry ingredients that included 3 cups of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. At this point, I was supposed to break 4 eggs, one at a time, into the butter mixture. But I ended up doing that after I started alternating the wet and the dry ingredients. When all the ingredients were mixed together, I poured it into the buttered and lightly floured pan. The recipe in the cookbook didn't specify a temperature to bake the cake at, so I ended up just doing it at about 350 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes until the top of the cake was a little bit firm, and then when I was able to stick a butter knife in it, and that butter knife came out clean. When the cake was done, I took it out to be able to cool, and I was supposed to put some holes in the cake in order for the blueberry filling to kind of fill the cake, but I didn't quite have anything that could put those holes in it, so I ended up just using a butter knife and cutting little X's into the top of the cake. While the cake sat to cool, it was time to start preparing and making some blueberry syrup. To make the blueberry syrup, I used a saucepan on medium-high heat and added 1 cup of blueberries, the juice of 1 lemon, and half a cup of sugar into the pan, and continued to cook them until the blueberries broke down and the mixture thickened up a little bit. While the blueberry syrup was on the stove and all of that was coming to a boil, I decided to use that time to prepare the blueberry topping. So with that, I added, I think I had about 2 cups of blueberries left over, maybe 3. The recipe called for about 5 cups total, but I didn't have that many. So I used the remaining blueberries that I did have. I used some of the lemon zest and then a half a cup of sugar and then the juice of the remaining lemon, and mixed that together and allowed that to kind of soak in overnight. continue to boil on the stove until most of the blueberries had broken down. And then it was time to turn it off and just let it cool for a little bit. You'll notice that once it cooled down, it did thicken up a little bit, and I just poured it through a strainer, used a spatula to kind of push the syrup through the strainer and get the blueberries separated from the syrup itself. This was also the first time I made homemade whipped cream by using a little carton of the heavy whipping cream and then some powdered sugar, and whip that up in the stand mixer as well. If you've watched any cooking shows in the past, you know that they make it look so easy and say, you know, just continue whipping it until it forms soft peaks. I don't really know what soft peaks means, so I just did it until it looked like whipped cream to me. The recipe also says to make the whipped cream just before serving, but I did do it at the same time that I was making the cake, even though we weren't going to eat it until the next day, and I also refrigerated that and then just mixed it up just before serving again. By this time the cake had cooled, so I added the blueberry syrup all over the top of the cake, and I tried to spread it across as evenly as I could and then kind of push it down into the cake so that the blueberry would seep into the slits that I made with the knife. It didn't quite cover the cake, and I didn't have a lot of the syrup to be able to seep into the cake, but that's probably because I was also short a couple of cups of blueberries. You'll see once it was cut and served, it looked great. It tasted great. I'd rate it 4 out of 5 coffee cups. Thanks for watching.